All right, today we're diving into a really fascinating source that connects two worlds you might not expect to see together: Christian scripture and chakra meditation. It all starts as a personal search for peace, but it really taps into this bigger, modern quest to find a spirituality you can feel. A connection that's not just in your head, but in your whole body. Okay, let's get into it. The author of our source kicks things off with a feeling that, let's be honest, is probably pretty familiar to a lot of us. That feeling of being caught in a whirlwind, the constant noise, the pressure, the nonstop demands of daily life. It's that feeling of just being totally overwhelmed. And that really leads to the central question this whole text is trying to answer. When you're stuck in that chaos, where do you even begin to look for some real stillness? This is the problem the author is trying to solve for themselves and for us. So, right in the middle of all that chaos, the author describes being drawn to meditation and breathwork. In those few quiet moments they could find, just focusing on the breath became this powerful anchor. It was the starting point for rediscovering a sense of calm and clarity that they thought was long gone. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The source lays out two different ways to find that stillness. On one hand, you have a pretty traditional Christian approach. You take a Bible verse and you really focus on it, meditate on it. But on the other hand, there's this method the author calls the take no thought method. This one's all about letting go and surrender. And this is the path that opens the door to the chakra system. But before jumping into that second path, the author makes a really strong case that meditation isn't some foreign idea to the Bible. Not at all. In fact, the source argues it's a practice that's deeply woven into Scripture, and it points to several key examples to back this up. The first piece of evidence they bring up is from the book of Joshua, and the instruction here is crystal clear. Meditate on God's law constantly. The text presents this as more than just a spiritual exercise. It's framed as a direct path to being prosperous and successful in your life. And that idea gets echoed again in the book of Psalms. Here, the blessed man is the one whose delight is in God's law and who meditates on it day and night. You can see the tone shifts a little here, from a command to something you do out of pure joy. And this third verse from Psalms really brings it all home. Here, meditation is presented as this deeply personal, internal kind of prayer. It's all about the state of your heart and hoping that it's acceptable to God. So the main point the source is making here is that meditation has a solid biblical foundation. So with that biblical groundwork laid, the author then switches gears back to that take no thought method we mentioned earlier. And this is where we get a full introduction to the concept of the 7 chakra energies. So what exactly is a chakra, according to this text? Well, it's defined as a spiritual energy center inside your body. And its purpose, as it's laid out here, is that when you open it through meditation, you can receive what the author calls spiritual downloads and connect with God, who they refer to as the Most High. Okay, this slide gives us a fantastic bird's eye view of the whole system. The source basically maps out a spiritual journey right onto our physical bodies. It all starts at the base of the spine with the root chakra, which is all about feeling grounded and safe. Then you move up to the sacral chakra for creativity and the solar plexus, which is your center for personal power. After that, you get to the heart, the hub for love and connection, and then the throat for self-expression. And finally, you reach the top 2, the third eye for intuition and the crown, right at the top of your head, which is described as your connection to higher consciousness. It's really a complete roadmap from the ground up. And the practice is laid out very clearly. The source is specific. You have to activate these chakras in order. You start with the root at the bottom, and you work your way methodically up to the crown. It's a very deliberate, step-by-step journey. Now, while all the chakras are presented as important, the author really zooms in on one in particular, the 6th chakra, which is known as the third eye. Let's take a look at why this one gets so much attention. According to the source, the third eye is basically the headquarters for our inner wisdom. You know that gut feeling you get, that inner teacher, your intuition? That's what this is. It's the lens that helps us make sense of our world. So how do you get this center of intuition up and running? Well, the source suggests it's about your whole lifestyle. There are physical things like decalcifying the pineal gland by cutting out processed foods and fluoride and eating healthy stuff like purple veggies. But there are also mental and spiritual practices, like keeping a grateful attitude and using yoga to quiet the mind. The author also lays out some of the signs you might notice if this activation is happening. Some of them are physical, like a feeling of pressure around your eyes or a ringing in your ears. And others are a bit more
out there, things like a heightened sense of awareness, seeing colors around people, or even having dreams that feel like they're predicting the future.
Okay, so we've looked at the biblical case for meditation, and we've walked through the chakra system framework. Let's pull it all together now and really get to the core argument that this source is making.
So what's the big idea here? It's that these two paths aren't in conflict. The source is proposing a synthesis, a framework where ancient scripture and the very physical practice of chakra work can be seen as two different tools for the same job. And that job is connecting with God and finding a deep, lasting inner peace.
And that really leaves us with a final, thought-provoking question to chew on. This text is just one example of something much bigger. It makes you wonder, what happens when ancient scriptures and these diverse spiritual practices cross paths? What new ways of understanding might open up? That's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us.